Then.
Oh,
Thank you for pointing that out, Susan.
that's probably because you're the host and I did not get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. So we've got all of that squared away. Okay. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I said that once and I'll say it again because we're so excited to have you here. I'm Cheryl Collins, founder and president of Women Entrepreneurs Worldwide and WLOTUS Inc. WLOTUS is a nonprofit and represents collaborative efforts between women entrepreneurs worldwide in the US and Sayeeda Ashraf, CEO of SHEWISE in the United Kingdom. As a nonprofit of women entrepreneurs worldwide, our endeavor are in alignment with SHEWISE and our collaborators. Since 2009, Women Entrepreneurs Worldwide's endeavors of building cultural relationships and networking bridges globally has and continues to be a positive and successful journey, bringing individuals together globally. So empowering, the journey started at a kitchen table in Little Elm, Texas, on LinkedIn, wherein LinkedIn continues to be our major social media platform. Although it is present on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter. WW members, connections, and followers has a number of approximately 30,000 and continues its growth daily as it is a monumental, diverse group that consists of individuals worldwide. With the formation of WLOTUS Inc., our endeavors are focused for the next 5 years on enhancing sustainable goals for women and girls, thereby increasing a better future that will work towards a better humanity for all. And our goals are these. They start, number one, we have diverse visionaries. Our WLOTUS team comprised visionary individuals from diverse backgrounds. Their passion drives initiatives that transcend borders and cultures. Together, we envision a world where every woman has the opportunity to thrive. 2, we have global networking. Through cultural relationships and networking bridges, we connect entrepreneurial women worldwide. We facilitate the exchange of business ideas, provide education training, and actively promote growth. Our global network is a powerful force for change. 3, inaugural event. We had our inaugural event, which started this off in March of 2023. WLOTUS hosted its online event. This event served as a prelude to our mission of measuring progress towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are the SDGs. We recognize that achieving these goals requires collective effort and unwavering commitment. Number 4, country by country roundtables. Our agenda includes in-person country by country roundtables, discussions, and we actively involve women from diverse nations aiming to establish build your own roundtable initiatives. No more to have to wait to take a seat at a table. These local roundtables empower women to effectively utilize the global SDG indicator framework, contributing to SDG achievement and long-term sustainability, in addition, raising the percentage status for their country. And number 5, but not last, information exchange. At WLOTUS, we understand the significance of knowledge sharing among women by fostering self-sufficiency and future sustainability. We contribute to a better humanity. Our ultimate goal is to empower women to build thriving businesses that align with the SDGs. We extend an invitation together. Let us ascend to heights, break barriers, and create a world where every woman's potential is realized, no matter her country of residence. There are 195 member countries in alignment with the United Nations in an effort to complete the framework of the SDGs by 2030. At present, there are about 15 member countries in the top 80%, wherein Finland is leading. At this juncture, please welcome Sayeeda Ashraf, founder of SHEWISE, and thank you very much for attending.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Cheryl. So my name is Sayeeda Ashraf. I'm the founder and chief exec for SHEWISE charity. SHEWISE is a UK registered charity. We've really been we're a very young charity, and our mission and our manifesto is drawn from the United Nations sustainable goals in terms of violence against women and girls and entrepreneurship, economic, financial and economic stability and independence for women globally. So today's event, thank you all for joining today's event, and I hope you'll all take away something from it. The idea of Cheryl and I sort of partnering up was really to create WLOTUS, was to try and get more female entrepreneurs involved in the project of the agenda of United Nations SDG goals, because I think women from grassroots levels, women entrepreneurs at grassroots level, if we don't take ownership of these goals, then we're never going to achieve them by 2030. And the whole purpose in a nutshell with WLOTUS is try and educate as many women at grassroots level about the SDG goals and what role they can play and how they can get involved and become a movement where we're all working towards the same agenda. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Christy, who will be first of all talking about the emerging he's the moderator for today, and we'll be talking about the emerging opportunities for women in the space industry, which I'm really excited about. So Christy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Sayeeda, and thank you, Cheryl. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, and to all the listeners who are going to view this through the recording format. I'm quite excited to be over here. My name is Christy Paul, and I had the privilege of being in the space industry for the last 3 years, doing an intensive study to understand what are the opportunities were there. And eventually, this year, we've started an entity called BioVisor Universal Research. So we are in the industry of space health. Simple reason is we understood that space tourism is going to be the future, and we wanted to play a small role in that aspect. So that's my involvement in the space industry. However, have been involved with the women entrepreneur space for more than 8 to 10 years, and had the privilege of sharing vast experiences in various industries over the years. And I found that the space industry is the future, and I wanted to share some insights, what is in it for the women entrepreneurs. But before that, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for Cheryl and Sayeeda and the entire organizing team for inviting me to be part of this wonderful online summit. I just wanted to give you a little bit of insights before delving into the opportunities of women entrepreneurs in the space industry. I'd like to take a moment to understand the magnitude of this sector. Just to give a small data from the Space Foundation, the Space Report 2021, the global space economy reached 447 billion in 2020, a robust and a growing industry with relevant, immense potential for innovation and growth. So what this means, what does the space industry holds for women entrepreneurs? Those who are quite excited to understand. The space sector presents a very unique opportunity for women to thrive as first movers, leveraging their creativity, expertise, and determination to make significant contribution. Women entrepreneurs can tap into various aspects of the space industry, including satellite technology, space tourism, Earth observation, and space exploration mission. Right? I've just listed down a few interesting areas. And before I introduce my keynote speakers, uh, this is an industry that I would strongly advocate that everyone who has the passion and who's curious to know about, to stay informed about this particular industry, to try and understand how to build your network within the space industry, how you can collaborate, right? So when I say all this, the question that could arise to all of you is, how do we all go about? Now, if you're in the space industry, probably you will have a fair idea. But for those of you who are from, various different sectors, who would like to have a gist of, hey, how do I go about in getting into the space industry? For them is something that I like to share is there are 5 websites that I'd like to, highlight, and probably that would be of interest when you go deeper into it. One is the NASA Women-Owned Small Program, right? Now, this program provides resources, networking opportunities, and procurement information specifically tailored for women-owned businesses interested in working with NASA. The second one would be the European Space Agency Business Applications. Business application programs offers funding and support for entrepreneurs developing innovative applications that use space technology. The third one would be Space Angels, a global network of investors focused on space ventures. Space Angel providers valuable insights, funding opportunities, and connection for entrepreneurs in the space industry. The next one would be Women in Aerospace. This is the 4th website that I would request you all to visit, which is a professional organization dedicated to advancing women in the aerospace industry. Their website offers networking events, mentorship programs, and career resources. The last one, I would say, the Space Foundation. The Space Foundation website provides news, events, and educational resources related to the space industry. They also host the annual Space Symposium, a premium event for space professionals. So there's a lot of content and there's a lot of information if you go through all of this, and there are many more, but I thought I'll just share some of these few as a takeaway for today's event. By staying connected to these websites and leveraging the resources they offer, women entrepreneurs can access valuable opportunities, connect with industry experts, and contribute to the existing advancement happening in the space sector. So that's a little bit of an insight I felt happy to share with you. Now, I would, it's my privilege to introduce to you to our 2 esteemed keynote speakers from the space industry who will be sharing the profound insights about the space industry today. Firstly, we have Professor Thais, a distinguished space scientist who has dedicated over 30 years to teaching and researching in the field of aerospace medicine, space physiology, aerospace biomedicine, aerospace biomedical engineering, telehealth, and digital health. With a rich background as a space scientist at the Institute of Aerospace Medicine, German Aerospace Center, Professor Thais has been actively involved in numerous scientific events, presenting over 300 scientific papers and contributing significantly to the advancement of space science. Notably, Thais has also served as a volunteer mentor for Space for Women. I repeat, Thais has also served as a volunteer mentor for Space for Women, an initiative by the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, showcasing a commitment to fostering inclusivity and diversity in the space industry. I welcome Professor Thais. And our second keynote speaker on the space industry would be Dr. Sri Sudha Vishwanathan, brings a wealth of experience from a tenure at the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, from India, as a scientist. Dr. Vishwanathan is not only a renowned scientist, but also the founder and the CEO of EduTech for Space, which is based out of the United Arab Emirates. Through EduTech for Space, she has made significant contribution to online education in space technology, astronomy, robotics, and rocket science, empowering aspiring space enthusiastic and professionals globally. Please note that after the first keynote speaker, we will have a 5 to 10 minutes of question and answer session, because I know there could be a lot of interesting and very insight questions that you may have, right? So please feel free to ask whatever that comes up to your mind. It does not have to be very technical in nature, but would be happy to have much more an interactive session, and so that everyone has something to take back from this event. So thank you so much. And I like to request Professor Thais. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here and able to share some of my knowledge and life experience with you all. I feel that I'm gonna take the video now and I come back later after the lecture because I want to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, sorry. I think that's an extremely important discussion of the presence and the influence of women in the space sector in different areas or in different levels, I would say. Could be a governmental agency, could be in academia, could be in the industry. We are a very, very small group, that's for sure. And I've been in this area for over 30 years, as Christy just mentioned, and it has changed a bit. I can see some, let's say, transformation in this regard, but it is still minor. We could be doing much more. We could be much more present in terms of the female side of as a researcher, as an administrator, as a scientist, as an astronaut. So if you just look at this data, for example, we have roughly 650 people that travel into space. Only 11 to 12% are women. In terms of spacewalk, again, it is dominated by men. Spacewalks when you go outside the space station or a spacecraft to do some work. In the space industry, it's, let's round it up, it's about a quarter, no? It is very, very, we should improve that, 20% or less than that, in fact, of women are CEOs in the sector of aerospace and defense. So if you go to the space, the private sector nowadays, the three main companies that everybody talks about, like Blue Origin and SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, they are run by men. So even in this area now, that's a completely new area, we are still, it is still dominated by men. I have to confess, and that's part of the story that I want to tell you, that when I was born in the 60s, it was a very important moment for space science. We had the Sputnik in 57, we had Gagarin in 61, and I don't know why, nobody knows why it happened to me, because my mother used to say that by the age of 4, I was already fascinated by space, and my toys, the way that I was playing with group of friends, everything was related to space. And for sure, at that age, I was completely unaware of the fact that women or men would be dominating this area. So it was just something very genuine. And I tried to follow that. And I had a very important, let's say, model. And I think that that's something that's an important message from my lecture, you know, that if we have a model, could be, in my case, was my grandmother, a very strong and determined, intelligent woman, but could be, you know, could be a friend, could be a professor, could be a cousin, it doesn't matter. It's someone that somehow gives you the motivation, the energy to fight for your goals, your dreams. And I think that thanks to her influence in my life, I was able to first to become a doctor. So I was graduated in medicine, and then to follow my dream of space, combining space, science, and medicine. So I did my master's degree in a course in Dayton, Ohio, in the only course open to civilians at that time at a master's level, what was connected to NASA. I did a PhD at King's College in the area of space physiology, and then I went to work in a space agency in Germany, in Cologne. After that, I shifted to academia and became very, let's say, started to teach and to conduct lots of research in the area of space physiology and medicine. One important aspect that during all my career, you know, as a medical student, as a space doctor, I could easily see the dominance of the my male colleagues, let's say. Now it was very clear to me. It's not something new to anyone, in fact, but it never stopped me. It never embarrassed me. So I think that that's very important, the way that you deal with this type of situation. So I could say that I succeeded in my dream to become a space scientist against all the odds possible, because I'm not just a woman, I'm a Latin woman. And it is something that adds a bit more to this. It's not a kind of discrimination, but it is a discrimination somehow, but it is not a frontal discrimination. So imagine I was a Latin woman, young, coming from Brazil, a country that is a developing country, with at that time no tradition in space exploration, coming from a small town here. Why it happened to me, why I had this fascination for space, nobody has an answer for that. I asked my mother, my father, everybody, my family, nobody knows. But I was able to follow that dream. And I think that was, maybe that's the best message that I can give to everybody that is here attending or that will see the recording. Because my dream, in fact, became the dream of many other people. I was able to really expand this dream through my academic activities in terms of research, teaching, and basically creating different, let's say, groups and promoting the network of students and researchers, not just in Brazil, but also very much internationally. Nowadays, I have a company called Inaugural Space, which has a strong area of education, and we work with countries like Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Romania, El Salvador, and so on and so forth, India, the Philippines, Malaysia. So we have a huge number of, let's say, countries in which I can, through lectures or courses or the motivation of the establishment of a research center or lab in the area of space physiology, I can then influence not just, of course, the professors and so on, but also the students, and many of them are female students. Why I was fascinated for that, I was always, since, as I said, my childhood, very curious about how we evolved in our planet and what space combined medicine was. So space medicine, what is it about? So if you look at our evolution, we have this influence of gravity, basically, or the conditions of our planet shaping our body and our mind, to a point now that we are becoming a bit more, let's say, ambitious, and we are becoming maybe what I call Homo sapiens spatial, which means that we are leaving our planet and we are reshaping our body and our mind. And this is going to have a huge influence in the, I don't know, centuries to come. We are going to be living and reproducing in different celestial bodies, possibly the moon and Mars. We are going to have, moon bases and Mars habitats, and we are going to become progressively cosmic beings. And it will be very important that this can be shown or can be studied, better saying, in terms of the body and the mind of a man and of a woman. If you look at that, at the first slide that I presented, just about 12%, 11, 12% of the astronauts are women. If you go to that and go to the data related to space medicine and physiology that we know nowadays, it's basically male physiology. We don't know much about female physiology, although we know that in terms of anatomy and physical reactions or the clinical presentations of diseases or effects or side effects of treatment, it's completely different between men and women. We know that, but we still study male volunteers here on Earth. So the majority of these studies, I would say 90% plus, are dedicated to study men in microgravity simulation, for example, here on Earth, and again in space during the space missions. And we know that our entire body changes. I'm not going to go in details, but just for this is a very nice chart just to show that every single line is a different body system, and then you have this a very intense reaction. Let's say take the first line, the yellow line of the neurological system, reacting very quickly to space exposure. And then you have the, let's just take as an example again, the dark blue line going much slower and continuously without adapting, without coming back to a set point. So it's just to show that it is a fascinating area. We must understand all these reactions, not just the body, but the mind, isolation, confinement, depression, the effects of radiation in the brain, and how we deal with crew diversity, and many other issues related to space psychology or psychiatry, behavioral science, that we need to understand. And this has to be done not just with women, let's say, participating as scientists, but also understand the differences between men and women in terms of the adaptation to space of the body and the mind. And then we go to other areas that I also find it fascinating, and that's is the daily activities of astronauts, and they are so different for men and women. How they sleep, how they eat, when they eat, how they socialize when they eat, or when they go to the toilet. It brings a very important area here, which is menstruation in space that not everybody talks about. And so people, many women, many astronauts, female astronauts, they suppress menstruation in space because, believe or not, there is no shower in space. So hygiene is very poor in space. And this, of course, would affect later on or in years to come the possibility of reproduction in space, for example. So, which is a big taboo that nobody really understands about. With the advent of the space tourism, I am more, let's say, optimistic that more women would become involved with the sector, the specific sector of space exploration, because it is going to be, I believe, a motivation for families, let's say, to go together into space, and then the mother, the father, or the grandmother, or the grandfather, and so on and so forth. Of course, it will bring a huge challenge for the space doctors, people from my area, because till now we are sending into space people that are very healthy. They are under a specific profile, and this is something that is going to change completely with the space tourism. People that are older or sick or taking medications, they will go into space, and many questions will open up to the scientific community, to the space doctors, space life science scientists. So we are going to need much more research, and we are going to need more involvement of different areas of medicine, including, for example, pharmacy or oncology or geriatrics, because someone that goes into space can be much older. We had someone that was 90 years old that went into space as a space tourist for 5-10 minutes. It was a very short flight, but it's something that is completely outside the normal curve that we have in terms of knowledge related to the human body in space. So this is an area that as it grows, it will be, let's say, motivating the creation of small companies, startups that would contribute to different areas for the space tourism to happen in the next few years. And of course, you don't need to have huge companies like SpaceX, but small companies or research in academia, and it can and should involve female volunteers, female subjects, plus, of course, scientists as well. In 2024, we are gonna have the Space Olympics together with the Olympics in Paris. So some aspects related to competitions or trying to or attempts to have some kind of sports in space will happen. And then I think that's something that's very, very, very important, is that when you talk about the space sector and all these possible new, let's say, needs that we are going to have, we are going to need, for sure, very sophisticated artificial intelligence systems to help astronauts to identify and to manage disease in space, especially if you are on the moon and if you are on Mars one day, or traveling to Mars or returning from Mars, and you don't have a good communication. There are delays in the communication that are massive in terms of Mars because of the distance between the two planets. So we are going to need more and more, let's say, people from the computer science area participating. Digital technology, creating, as it happens now, immersive environments or the use of augmented reality to help with the definition of some techniques to be used or possibly used one day in space, in surgery. Very recently too, it was a holograph teleportation of a doctor was sent to the International Space Station. But I'm bringing that here because this is going to be the solution for, not the only, but I believe there's going to be a huge contributor for the the management, identification management of disease in space. And again, as we know, this is dominated by male professionals. Now, the computer science, engineering, it is something that will come, and it is very needed to keep the astronauts' health in space, space tourists' health in space. But again, it will come with this distortion that it is dominated by men here on Earth. So I can tell you by experience that this area of space is still very much in the hands of a man. It is dedicated to the understanding of the male body in space, the male body and mind in space, I would say. There is a shift, that is starting, I would say. So people are more inclined to have female astronauts. The first woman on the moon should travel under the Artemis program, and so on and so forth. But we have to agree that it is still something that's completely dominated by men. I just launched a book, which is it is a free book, so there is no financial gain. It's called The Secret of the Dark Stone, and it is set in India. You just go to the homepage of Innovspace and download the book for free. And this was an attempt to, to do two things, in fact. First, to give it to India as a gift in terms of because of all the achievements that they had in the space area in the last few years. Is a country that is becoming progressively more important. And also because the book has a boy and a girl, and the girl solves problems and creates solutions together with the boy, of course. So it's Sahana, the girl, and Yash, the boy, but they are pretty much let's say, together in this adventure, in this space adventure. And I think that that's a way to create this idea that girls and boys are equal, and that they can contribute in the same way for the solution of a space or a kind of scientific problem that is happening here on Earth. So if you have this the opportunity, please don't miss this book, and advertise, please, because it is a way to contribute for that idea of gender equality. So that was my message. I hope you have enjoyed. I didn't want to bother you with knowledge about space medicine and space physiology and so on, but to give you some aspects related to my life that I think that's very important. As I said, when I started my passion, I was completely unaware of all these I was completely unaware about everything. I was just a kid of 4 years old. So for me, there was no private sector, there was no government, there was no competition, there was no Russia and the United States, there was nothing like that, male, female, or whatever. So what I think is important, that I didn't let this dream to fade away somehow. And as I said, I think that my grandmother had this very important influence. She was a model that I could follow, and I'm very happy that at the stage of my professional life that I'm in now, looking back, I can say that I influenced people from many different countries, and that are still following, still doing, still working in the space sector. So thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Professor Thais. That was a wonderful journey that you took us through, and kudos to the encouragement that your grandmother gave you. Right, that's, I think, a great motivation for all of us who are here, and especially to all the women as well. Right, and some of the observations that I had while you were going through the presentation, there's a lot of technical information and insights of your expertise that you shared, but was excited to see the Olympics 2024 that's taking place, right? That was news, and that's awesome, right? So it's
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that they are gonna try to link something with Earth, as they did. I don't know if you remember when Team Peak was in his mission at the ISS. He was running a marathon inside the
Okay.
ISS when there was the London Marathon happening. So it was the
Right.
same moment. So I feel that that's the idea, is to create a connection. Hopefully it happened.
Wonderful, wonderful. And definitely the second thing that I always, had a question, and I'm sure that's going to be a long one, but definitely I used to wonder how the astronauts, use the toilet, and specifically you brought in that point. And well, do they ever have a bath? And you said that's very challenging, and hygiene is one of the areas that, is to be looked in. But yeah, it's amazing what the astronauts go through and the sacrifice that they have taken for this mission, and it's amazing, right? And it's wonderful. But Prof. Sais, for the benefit of all the participants who are here, right, and those who are going to view the recording, what is it that you would like to share for them, where you have been as a mentor in the United Nations for Space for Women? So typically, do you feel what kind of a qualification, is there any qualification that is required for women to enter the space industry? If you can throw some light on that, please.
Yeah, no, it was a very interesting experience. I had 3 mentees, and we worked, let's say, every 3 weeks we had meetings and discussed many things. So it was very interesting. We had a project, and I really enjoyed that role. I think that this is again, it's a way to motivate the young ladies to pursue a career in space, but not necessarily. Could be something that is not space related, or clearly space related, and somehow contribute to different areas of different scientific and technological areas. So I think that's quite important to have programs like that. I was very happy to contribute. In terms of qualifications, I always tell my students that it does not matter. You can be an artist, you can be an architect, you can be an engineer, or it's space science nowadays is a very complex area. And as we are trying to build, I don't know, cities on the moon or on Mars or around the Earth, we are going to need everybody, every single, let's say, area. If you are a philosopher, one of these, just as an example, one of these days I gave a lecture about the space philosophy, in terms of, do we want to become a cosmic being? Or do we want to remain as humans, going into space and coming back to Earth? Or we are going to be completely adapted to the moon and not being able to come back to Earth one day, for example. So there are philosophical questions, there are questions related to technology or science and humanities and law. How we are going to, if you are born in space, which is your nationality exactly? So, space law, which is a fascinating area, that deals with many aspects related to human space, not just human, but space exploration. So I think that you don't need to have any specific area. You have to follow the area that you love. And then if you want, and that's your desire, connect that to space science.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that's one of the important information that you have shared. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I leave it up to the participants for their questions. while I understand that, you mentor, people who actually want into the space industry. So if one has to reach out to you and to kind of handhold and get an insight of it, because to my knowledge, with some of the women who I interacted with, and when I asked them what kind of knowledge you have in the space industry, and I said, oh, there's a lot rockets going up, right? And we see astronauts and so on and so forth. I think it's maybe the last 1 year or something. There's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of media talking about it. So therefore, there's a lot of buzz that's taking place. But I know there's a lot of opportunity over there. So if one has to get in touch with you and take some mentorship or something, are there any possibilities that they can do that? So if you can share some insights or some kind of a guidance, if you may, please.
Yeah, sure. If you go to my company's page, novspace.org, there is a contact email there, and I always reply. Well, I have inside the Novspace, I created a working group for students, which we call Space Crew. And so for example, students, they can join. The idea is that we promote several activities, webinars, but I think that the most important one is to improve their network, because they can talk to people from many different countries, from different areas, and they learn a lot by these informal, sometimes, contacts that they created. So there are many opportunities at Novspace. When I created the Novspace a few years ago in 2018, I created this idea that we should be flexible, we should be very, we should customize our projects and activities with different, as we want to be global, we need to do that if you want to succeed in different countries with different cultures, different religions, and so on and so forth. So it is, I think that's a very interesting design of a company. Of course, we have a profitable side, which is to work with other companies to make some money, but there is this huge education and outreach sites that are basically free of charge, and some courses we charge, because I invite people from, not just me giving, but the majority of activities are for free, especially for the outreach area, which is publication of books or blogs or webinars in schools, or activities in scientific fairs in schools and things like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for those insights. I leave it up to the participants. If they have any questions, please.
Don't be shy.
Yes.
No real questions, Professor Thies, but just a comment in terms of thank you so much for the insight. There was, like Christy said, there was so much information that you had packed in there, which we were always curious about, but we didn't really, we didn't really know how to go about obtaining that information. So I just think it's such a great mission that you're doing, is trying to get more and more women involved in this and create awareness. And I think what we need to do is to get more and more universities and schools to sign up to this, in order to really make sure that women, there isn't that bias anymore moving forward in terms of the discrepancy there is with gender in industries like space and constructions and few other industries. So yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to appreciate the presentation. It was very informative.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to jump in here for a minute before anybody else does. I am so appreciative of Professor Thies. I know I had been really bugging her a lot, so I'm so glad she took the time, and she's given us so much valuable information. But I do have a question, something that I'm interested in. Professor Thies, what do you think that elementary school or the lower grades are too early to introduce this to young people? Because one of the reasons I asked recently, and we couldn't get them to come on, North Carolina A&T awarded 3 scholarships to individuals, 3 women here in North Carolina. And I was thinking to myself, if a program was introduced to the youth at, way before, because they're really curious when they're like in elementary school and, hands-on and things that they do. And space is something that they're curious about. And they have little, toys and things like that. Do you think that it would be advantageous for a program like this to start at the earlier grades? Just my opinion, I think it would be really beneficial, and it may even help in moving them towards another direction for things that they're doing now and give them something else to occupy their time. And I think that's, I think that would be really beneficial, but I just wanted to know if you thought that that would be too young.
No, I completely agree with you, and thank you very much for this question, because it is very curious to me that we are living the space era, let's call like that, since the 60s or the end of 50s with the Sputnik in 57. But if you go to schools, and I've been doing that in many different countries, they don't know about that. They don't, it's not part of their curriculum. And it could be inserted in different areas, in lectures of, let's say, geography or history, science, math, physics. So it could be part of their curriculum in different ways, not just as a space, let's say, class, or a space science class. And it is not. Once someone said to me, but why am I gonna teach about space and astronauts? Nobody here in this class will be an astronaut or wants to be an astronaut. They say, well, they cannot be Napoleon, and we are gonna teach about Napoleon anyway, no? We are gonna teach about the wars. They are not gonna be soldiers necessarily. So it is, I think that there is this barrier. I don't understand exactly the psychology, because it is worldwide. If you go to the United States, that is a very active country in the space area. If you go to Brazil or to England or to any country in Europe, they don't teach space science in schools. I have a program called the ABC of Living in Space, which is basically dedicated to teach elementary and high school kids about human space exploration. But that's a personal effort, no? It is not something that is part of the educational system of countries. I just don't understand. There is something behind it, which is not something that is conscious, no? I feel that there is a barrier, a psychological barrier. The justification is not there anymore. We have astronauts living in space for the last 20 years. Every day we have somebody there, and nobody knows their names, nobody knows their nationalities or what they are doing there, their professions, their experiments. It is, I don't understand. It is something so important that we are doing as a humanity, and it is like hidden. It is a secret that nobody, we just know through the media, or some magazines or scientific publications that is for a core of people, not for the general public. So I think that's very important. We should motivate schools and the government to start talking about it, for God's sake, and
I think it's also the limited beliefs, isn't it? It's people don't really think that that's something that they can achieve. It's still so much far beyond our, it's almost like, you think, oh no, I can't do it. So, everyone's got a limited belief then, so I think that probably is one of the reasons why, it almost seems like it's something that's only achievable to few and not
No,
many.
I agree and I understand, but it's not just to achieve or not to achieve. It is our history. We are living this history now. At least
Absolutely.
as the historical aspects, the milestones, people don't know. If you ask students, how many space stations we had, which was the first space station? We are talking about the space station. We are talking about something built by humans that was put in orbit to become a kind of a house for astronauts or cosmonauts. So it is quite an interesting. I think that maybe because also it started pretty much linked to the military and to the governments, and it was like a secret somehow, and it perpetuated as a position.
Very true. Very true. Thank you so much, Dr. Thayers.
Thank you
So
so much,
appreciative.
Professor.
Thank you.
Thank
But
you
I do
very
have a
much.
little story. I remember sitting around the television, and we had this living room, you know, with the big house, 3-story house, and so forth of my grandmother. And it would come on television about the astronauts and going into space. And I tell you, that was a big moment. It was like, no, you have to come here and sit down, you know, and watch the astronauts. And I'm trying to, okay, let me go. I probably would have dated myself. Glenn, you know, one of who went up, and it just was, you know, I remember that. And I yeah, you're right. I mean, it may be a dream, but just like your dream came true, others can have that opportunity also if we expose them. And so with mentors like you and, you know, so forth, then I think that it's possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much for your time. Right. So I think our next keynote speaker, I'd like to invite Sri Sudha to kindly share her thoughts, please.
Thank you, Christy. Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
you are.
Am I?
Yes, you are.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, fine. Sorry, I had some internet glitch, I guess. Okay, let me share my screen. First of all, thank you, WLOTUS, for giving me this opportunity. I'm very happy and honored to be here today, to be among you, to create awareness about women in space industry. That's the first thing we need to do, and then comes empowerment. And thank you, Christy, for rightly pointing out few of the websites. You know, that is while you start reading, that's when you come to know what is happening around. And I thank the previous speaker, keynote speaker, Professor Thayers, for 3 decades of experience in space domain and sharing with us and as well as inspiring us, not only from her domain, but generally about space and how girls can be, you know, aspiration. And let us move on directly to the space awareness part. Women astronauts, because astronaut is always fascinating, though you speak about space. So let me touch about women astronauts. These are names just to give you that space has not been only men in the past, but of course we have statistics which will come about later. So as Professor Thayers had pointed out, the race began in 1957 or so, when Russians started to send their first spacecraft into space. And immediately, just think, within a period of 5 years, they thought about putting a woman into space. That is when you have seen the first women astronaut from Russia, Valentina, in the year of 1963. I particularly pushed the arrow, you know, in certain cases where you see there is a huge gap. Then from 1963 onwards, you just move on to 1982, a huge gap, a decade's gap. That is when Svetlana, again a Russian astronaut who went to space for a spacewalk. And then there was always a bit of space race. Any development that has to happen, that has to be a healthy war, right? So there was a space race between US as well as Russia. And thanks to that, because of which the space technology, what we are witnessing today, has been not only the technology for space, but all those space technology as spin-offs, which have been used in Earth as well, on Earth as well. For example, the online communication, the webinars that we have, everything is based on the technology that we developed for space, which has been used for Earth too. And Sally is the first American in 1983. So you see the gaps. It's immediately when a Russian is sent, immediately the Americans follow, and they wanted to also be in the race. And then you had Catherine. So there is not other countries in the picture, which I really want to show, is then you have Helen from UK. Okay, so slowly you see it has become a trend. It is no more, a new theory to have a woman in space. Then you can see the group of astronaut pictures have started including women also. And then now Canada, Japan, China, Italy, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran. So I've just listed few countries. You can imagine wherever you go in the world, you have people, women astronauts. So until now, from 1963 to go on record until February 28, 2024, which I collected through Google and of course Wikipedia, 75 women have flown into space. That's a huge number to get inspired, is it not? Yes, there had been ups and downs, and always inspiration and a healthy competition motivates more people to come into space. Okay. So where did it lead to? It leads to the condition of diversity and inclusivity. If you see, I've just taken one more statistics, which shows you can see slowly spreading across, and some major players who are into women astronauts, whichever countries are hosting. And that goes into diversity and inclusivity. People of different age groups, different color coming into the picture. And this is about the Artemis mission, which is a mission to have humans on moon, mission to moon. Okay. And there is a NASA's declaration that the women of color will be the one who will be first landing on the moon. And here also in the mission astronauts announced, you can see it's a mixed, not only in case of gender diversity, but also irrespective of the race, you have a Canadian, from the Canadian participation, you have a Black man also. So this is how it has been. So for people who have been like, oh, women in space, is it new? No, it has been in the past. It is nothing new. Only astronauts? There comes the question. No, it is not only astronauts. You have women in space and STEM who are doing many things. So this is again one of NASA's video, which I would like to play. It's just a 2 minutes video, which gives you the diverse sector where women have participated in space. They need not be always in space. They can be in ground on Earth and supporting the women and the men in space.
There is no sound for me.
Yeah, Dr. Shri said that there's no sound. I'm not sure.
Hired women computers who wanted to be engineers, but who didn't have the necessary education.
There is sound now, but very little. Maybe we can start from the beginning again with the sound being a little bit louder.
Is it okay now? Is it okay?
No, it's not coming in.
I would share the link later. In that
Okay.
case, is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I think you can do that in the chat box and share the link.
Yeah.
Probably we can view
So,
it.
yeah, probably. Yeah. So I will do that. But let me just put it in short words that always when we see it is not women in space, it is not women who are there in space as astronauts or just staying in the International Space Station, but also the women who work on ground, who can be mathematician, who can be a physicist, who can be like Professor Thais in space medicine, and you can be an engineer from any diverse background, whether it is IT, whether it is computer science or chemical engineer or a civil engineer, or you can be even for example, a person with an MBA degree, because project management is so crucial, right? These are different projects. So that is where women have been contributing in history and are continuing to contribute, okay, irrespective of this. So what am I speaking about? So, okay, are we only speaking about women in developed countries or involved in space? No. I just want to give two examples. One here is UAE Mars mission, the country where I'm residing. So this is United Arab Emirates, Dubai, you know, exactly. You can see a picture of women scientists in the first with their robes, you know, all these, the 70% almost of the technical team of the UAE's Mars mission were women. And 30% of the whole, that is their first interplanetary probe. And UAE is having a recent addition to the space domain. They are not pioneers like, India or US or Russians or the Europe. So they've started new into this interplanetary mission, and this is the first mission, and you could see women representation in a huge way. And you see the lady down, and she had been presiding over the UAE Mars mission, their first interplanetary mission. And the lady to take it over was Sarah Al-Amri. And so that's how it is speaking nowadays, when you at least go to these recent years. And the second one you see with respect to India, that is India's first sun mission, which is called Aditya. And you see Dr. Nigah Shaji there. She was the project leader. So a woman leading the first solar mission of India. So this is how it had been. And what you see behind is a crowd of women in their national attire on the day of Chandrayaan 3. Chandrayaan 3, the whole world knows what was a successful landing in the South Pole by ISRO. And the Prime Minister there encouraging all the women in the sector. So you see a crowd of women. So all this is happening everywhere, every corner of the world. That is a message for awareness as well as to get inspired. And again, just to speak on space sector opportunities. If I have to tell about these space sector opportunities, I could even understand Christy was asking before, to Professor Thais, where can women fit in, or anybody fit in space? So if you take space, it is not only the rockets, you have satellites, and you also send robotics to space, like missions to space, right? And after the satellites are sent to space, they have a specific function. So you call it as downstream. So here it can be either communication, for you have a host of connectivity of satellites which communicate among each other, or it can be for navigation. GPS is the best example. Or it can be you have a lot of data you need to observe. For example, that's called remote sensing. You have a lot of data. Remote sensing can be used for weather monitoring, for agriculture. So it has got n number of applications. And remember, every domain will need some expertise into space. That's why space is considered as the best example of STEM. So whether it is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, even it is told as STEAM, arts is also included, because you need to have artistic vision. And not only that, I would also include management. I'll put one more M into that, because unless you know how to manage the project within the deadlines with the best of the resources, that's a skill and very important art that is needed for a space domain which works based on projects. So these are the yes, a chemical engineer you have fuel, you're carrying fuel, and what proportion of fuel you have to carry, and what is the oxidizer, which is the best fuel you can carry. So you need to have a knowledge on chemical engineering as well, and you need to manufacture. So civil engineering. And tomorrow, when space moves into moon and Mars habitation, just think you need buildings as you need on Earth. So a civil engineer, you need doctors as you need on Earth, right? So everything, every profession that is on Earth has an equal importance in space if you are going to habit Moon or Mars in the future. So this is a wide scope and includes diverse skills for this sector, and that's why I say space as STEAM or STEM, including management. And there is chain of opportunities. Christy was also mentioning the billion-dollar industry's growth in the recent years and what it is going to be in future. So it is a very potential area for job opportunities as well. So growth areas of the new space, which I have been mentioning, is other than manufacturing or Earth observation, debris and waste management. When I said satellites, a huge number, we are polluting space as well. So how are you going to take care of that? Again, sustainability, not only on Earth, but also on space, right, is coming into a picture. Space tourism, which is something like, has come out huge success in case of an industry, I would say, and it has got huge potential in future as well. Space medicine, we right now have a professor as example. Food and nutrition, because if you see the people on international space station, it's against gravity. They have to, their dehydrated food is what they package and you send all the way. And there are experimentations for growing plants in international space station. So if you're going to go to Mars and Moon tomorrow, so what are you going to do for your food and nutrition? So you need to have a proper thought. So law and space policy. So with so many space missions, we need to have peaceful cooperation of space, right? And utilization of space. So you need to have law and space policy. And just think of mining, asteroids, or any other, planets or moons for that aspect can have rare earth metals, can have potential minerals. So mining is one aspect. The way we dig for fossil and other mining, the same thing can be carried out in space as well. So these are the growth areas in the new space arena, which if anybody is interested in any of this arena, you can just think about it, read more about it, and come back. And irrespective of saying all this, women in STEM, wherever I go to the statistics, is up less than 30%, whatever I speak. So that requires awareness. Even Professor Tai was mentioning that, whatever you do, however you speak, however you inspire, still there is underrepresentation. We need to bring more and more girls into space industry. That's a must that we all have to think about. Okay, so this is what I'm doing in EduTech for Space. I don't want to take a wide time, but I will tell through my example what can one do. So even Shirley was mentioning, can we introduce at a young age? This we have been doing, which we promote. STEM has to be introduced at a young age. Gone are the days when you see, like, Yankee Doodle went to town kind of rhyme. We are now for the 5-year-olds. We start with rhymes of planets. You can see wearing the mask under this one. So they come to know about the planets in solar system. We play a rhyme and we make them enact. And dwarf planets, for example. So these are some things that, in a way, like they of learning space through fun, as you introduce at a very young age. And for girls, especially, we introduced to STEM at young age. You can see some models of the Hubble Space Telescope and other things, which they are just paper-made models if you want to group, and you can modernize it to 3D printing, where you introduce to coding and the latest technologies. We are doing that. And first thing, which is very, very important, is as any profession, we always have to ensure whether do we have to ask a question on and off, are we providing equal opportunities to girls? So for example, this is one picture where I say there are for every 2 boys, there is a 2-girl ratio 1:1 is the ratio when I try to introduce a STEM activity where they are building a robotic assembly. Just looking at a picture, they are doing a robotic assembly of the hardware. So please ensure that you give equal opportunities to girls. So as a leader or a in charge in any profession, please always check on this aspect again and again and again. These are two things that I definitely want to say, that introduce STEM at young age, provide equal opportunity to girls. And what did I do being a women CEO again is the first mission where we had some student satellites into space. I had two girls being part of the first mission who launched their first satellite into space through a private space sector vehicle. So these are some simple things that we can try. And when there are funding opportunities, when there are grants, please ensure that you include a sizable population of girls into that. When you introduce STEM at a very young age, I'm damn sure the confidence and the inspiration that the child gets is a lot more, and definitely, irrespective of any field, they march on with confidence. This is a message I just wanted to give. And yes, I don't want to talk too much on it, whereas I want to have more questions for interaction. So thank you. I would end by this quote of Sally Ride, who was the first American astronaut. We need more young women who are willing to be courageous, to speak up, to take risks, to keep pushing the boundaries to create a better world. That is more important, whether it is 19th century or 20th century or future, we need to take care of that. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And here I am, ready for questions.
Thank you so much,
Sorry, Christy.
Dr. Sayeeda. Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead,
Christy. I was going to say, I can put the video on, try and put the link on if you want me to do that. Shall I do that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'll be great.
Okay. So this was the video.
Yeah, please.
No, it's audio is still not coming on.
Oh. Is the audio not? Can you hear it?
No, it's not.
What
Able to hear.
What we can do is share. There is a share button. You can share that link in chat so that people can have it.
Okay, all right. I was hoping that you'd be able to do it through my through me, but unfortunately we can't. So we'll just share it in the chat.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Christy, for Q&A.
Yeah, I've just shared the link to everyone. I managed to get the link from YouTube. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Sayeeda. I think that was another very insightful information in terms of how women are slowly, getting into the space industry. And of course, there's a huge gap, but I think the start is amazing to hear. And I think it's a great encouragement, to see how people of different walks can get through it. And I like especially the slides, apart from just STEM, what are the other areas of, involvement, be it management or, be it civil engineer or some of the highlights. I happened to be part of one of the conference in February, right? And I happened to meet one of the designers who works on the astronaut spacesuit, right? So he was showing me some of the drawings. So every astronauts, when they go in, so that a 3D scan that is being done, and immediately the image comes onto the computer, and then he starts taking the size of the astronauts to work on the design, right? So on a lighter note, I told him that I think you're the tailor for the space industry. Am I right? So he literally started laughing, right? So yeah, pretty much every industry, there is something that is there to offer. It's just that we need to get more knowledge about it and discover what is it that we can get in, right? Because one of the conversations that I was having with Sayeeda and Shell was, hey, women who in the fashion industry, how would they get in? Or women in the, baking industry, is there something that they can do in the space industry? How about coaching, So women are into various segments as well, right? Now, when we say there's a huge space for them in the space industry, in what way? How do I get into it? How do I know about it? Where do I get this information? How do I make the first step? Right? Where do I get connected? Right? So things like that. So there's a vast information available. I think it's a lack of awareness, as you rightly pointed out, and there's a lot of information that one needs to, and that is something that took me almost 4 years just to understand the procurement system of NASA per se, because it's a very vast department in multiple segments, right? So that's how it is, but it is the future, is what I feel. And I don't know if you have any participants who would like to ask you any specific questions. If anybody is there, please do.
Thank you very much. But I'd like to just add my bit and say that one of the things that I've been proud of since I've been here in North Carolina is the STEM projects. There's a big emphasis here. There were, they had competitions. They had, I mean, it was really, really, and I would like to see, I didn't participate with all of them, but some of my children, were there, and I went to some of the events. But I got to say that I like your program, and I think that, as you pointed out, and as your slide showed, we need to come down a little bit in these age groups, and let's start getting the mind, equipped to making it, let them know it's possible, especially, the girls. And I think that what that will do is it will build up their their enthusiasm, their confidence in themselves, because I did see a lot of that in the STEM projects. So, not that, okay, just guys can do it, we can do this too. And they built their own. So I was glad to see your slide and to see, the young people that were involved. And I do appreciate you taking the time to come on, and explain this to us. And I'm sure that the interest will be really heightened when we show and share this video. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that.
And again, Dr. Shrestha, I again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. It's been so inspirational for both Cheryl and myself, and we're very determined to get more schools and universities involved in creating awareness, because this is one area, I think, upcoming area that women can really make a difference, especially for the younger age. So I'm just a huge thank you for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think
Thank you.
just one last point before I ask Zaida and Cheryl. This is Shishwa, this is something that I was telling Cheryl and Zaida, that WLOTUS should take up a mission of creating awareness with 500 women, and that could be split into whether it be in schools, colleges, corporates, or institutions.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of awareness that needs to get into, and I hope this could be one of the visions during, as WLOTUS grows. Yeah. Thank you so
Christy,
much. And
Christy, I
Definitely.
was thinking more 1,000 women, right? 1,000 women in the
Fantastic.
space industry. I think we should take that on as a challenge.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, and I think that it could be met. I mean,
Very
it's just
realistic.
with anything, you have to be committed. You have to put forth of the energy, and you have to stay focused on it. That's what I say in all of my groups. Like, no, you can't just say, let me create this, and then you let it go and you walk and you leave it to someone else. You have to have a certain commitment, like Professor Thias, Dr. They're committed to what they do. And so in anything, that is the only way to make progress. But I'm all for it. I believe that we could definitely get 1,000 women, I mean, it definitely, and we could probably start and hold something, either in the UK or, in Dubai and we could work it from there. You start there and you kind of build up. I think there would be a lot of interest. I really do. And I'm just basing that on, not that I'm trying to get everybody to come to North Carolina, but I'm just saying the schools here have been very, very involved in that. And I just found that to be okay. I think this is a
Yeah.
good thing. And there I see the women, I see the girls, I just women, but I see the young girls who are really enthusiastic about it. You know?
I think,
So
unfortunately, in UK, we don't have, I mean, there's a lot of awareness around STEMs, but in UK, we don't seem to be that focused on the space industry. And I think there's a great scope here, especially since schools and colleges are looking. And I think there's, you know, having related to work in the mental wellness in space, I think there's a real, you know, there's a real problem in terms of young people being inspired and having dreams and being motivated, looking forward to the future, because there's so much well, negativity around us. So I think this is one industry, one dream that one can really sort of go after and say, look, you know, there is hope and there's excitement and there's adventure there. So I definitely think this would be a really good project for WLOTUS to focus, especially with girls, you know, because that is women and girls. So thank you so much, both of our keynote speakers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking
Over
forward
to
for
you,
that
Sayeeda.
eagerly.
Yes, over to you, Sayeeda. You can.
Thank you so much, Christy, and thank you for moderating that segment for us. You did really well. We couldn't have had a better moderator, and keeping the conversations going and the interest going. So now we're moving into our second segment, and again, I'll bring Cheryl in to talk a little bit more about the WLOTUS objective and aims and missions. I know we've already gone through them, but just to revive. Oh, Cheryl, shall I play the video first? What would you like to do?
I think you should play the video because that would be a good introduction for Susan to come in. And,
Sure.
you know, I think it'd be very good for everyone to see that.
Let me know if the volume works.
I wonder why.
No, it's not working.
Is the volume working? Sorry.
No, it's not, Sayeeda.
It's not. Oh, that's such a shame. That is really such a shame. Shall I? It's a 1 minute video. Shall I let it play and then see?
Yeah, please do.
Hi, Seda. There was a suggestion in the chat about share sound.
Hi there. Was that okay to view?
It was okay to view. Yes, there was a suggestion, and I don't know if you have that button because I know we don't have certain things, was to share sound in the where you have the share at. It's to there's a specific section that just says share sound. So that might have been, I'm not sure. I know it was on mine, but I'm not going to switch up at this particular point.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll share the link in the video, but I think because it had the description, it sort of gave the gist in terms of what hold on, we've got a question. I need to share the file in the meeting. We have, hold on a minute. Oh, I shared a file in the meeting. I beg your pardon. I didn't realize I had. Okay, I've stopped sharing now, so it should be okay. So just bringing us into our next guest, which is, we've got our next keynote speaker, which is Susan Papula, and Susan is recently been a delegate with United Nations, and I wanted to, we brought her in as a keynote speaker to really share her journey about being part of United Nations and the SDG goals, and also Susan has a real passion for including men into the voice with women empowerment, and it's very interesting what Susan has to say about all of that. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Susan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Sayeeda, for inviting me. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to see you all. And I must say, it's especially nice to see Christy Paul here today with the key role that he's playing in the event. So
Thank you.
Thank you. So as Sayeeda said, my name's Susan. That's Susan Papula. And through my work, relationships and observations, I've become increasingly aware that we live in a world of complexities and trauma in all sorts of forms. And as such, my work is with organization and leaders to create harmony, and harmony will come to the fore of what I'm talking about, as well as impact, so that we develop what I call a mosaic world. And for me, a mosaic world is a place in which everyone is valued for who they are and what they have to offer. And I really started thinking, I'm a deep thinker, I've always been a deep thinker, but I really started thinking about gender when I was in my teens, because I'm the youngest of 8 children. And by the time I was about 15, I had 2 sisters and a brother married. And the observations, I had one of my sisters who worked. She worked in the city, and she seemed to work very long hours, so much so that she didn't seem to have time to spend with her family. That's what I saw. There might have been other things going on, but she was just always at work from the way I saw things. And after some time, she did actually step back a bit. Her husband was also working long hours, and he went on to do his PhD and everything. So there was a dependency on him to some degree, because he was the one after a stage that had the highest qualifications. Then there was my sister that was a stay-at-home mum. And I looked and I thought, I don't like that. Now, she also went on to develop her own business, but that was what I saw. Then I had the brother who's actually the best cook in my family, but he never cooked. It was always his wife. His wife worked just like he did, but she was the one that seemed to always be doing the cooking and the cleaning and the looking after children. And that was key for me, because it told me what I didn't want. And I think that is key to why I went on to work. I've worked with different organizations, but primarily on a freelance consulting basis, so that I have flexibility. But I was informed by those things, and I don't know about you, whether you can identify with what I've said, but most people will think back to their families, the time that they spent growing up, and the messages, because it's not just about my family, it's culture. It's culture, it's traditions, it's what society expects of us. And even if you don't see it at play in your family, you'll probably find it's there in education. The messages that we give to children, who teaches, who supports at the lower, at the younger ages, where we're nurturing young people? It's typically women. But then when you get to higher levels, it's men. So they're the messages that we send out to young people. And I've been very mindful of those things over time, observing those things, how they impact how we position men and women. It's in our religious institutions as well. And key is observing all of this. In around the year 2000, I was doing a research for masters, and it was focused on women. I came across an organization which was called Opportunity 2000. And they had all the objectives that they had, things that they wanted to achieve for the furtherment of women in the workplace and more widely. But they'd got to the year 2000 and they hadn't achieved those things. So they changed the name to Opportunity Now. These are the things that need to be done now. And for me, that links to the UN and this UN objectives, the sustainability goals, and everything that we're trying to achieve with all the other organizations around. As I observe, how much progress have we really made? Because from what I see in the corporate space, with all the initiatives, there are a number of very capable women, but the progress doesn't align. In spite of all the programs and initiatives, some very good, but the progress that women have made doesn't align, even though we're just as capable as men. I will emphasize, I'm not saying more capable, but just capable, just as capable. So what's going on? Because we've got over 10% of women globally in extreme poverty. And note that that's extreme because there's poverty more generally. We know that there have been setbacks more recently which have enhanced poverty because of COVID, which affected men and women, but disproportionately had an impact on women, women who suddenly found that they couldn't go out to work and had to stay at home, caring responsibilities, what have you. We know that climate change has had a deeper impact on women. And again, that it affects everyone, but again, women are more impacted, just as the case is when it comes to conflicts and war and all of those things. And I can't imagine with all of these things what it must be like at this stage with women in places like Gaza and Afghanistan, Yemen, Sudan, and the Congo. But the key is there are those setbacks. And so part of that is what interests me in the work of the UN and why I thought, let me find out what they're doing and what role I can play. And so that means over the past 2 weeks, I have been involved in conversations and meetings, and I've still got another meeting this afternoon, and I will be putting together some of my thoughts, which I'm happy to share with people if they want to get in contact for me to do so. But the key with all of those things is that there is a very strong focus. The UN, they have the Commission on the Status of Women, and they've had meetings over the years. And this year it's the 68th meeting, and it's the largest gathering, which is focused on gender equality and women's empowerment. And this year's theme is around accelerating the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls by addressing poverty and strengthening institutions and financing with a gender perspective. It's great that with what they're doing, that there's a recognition that there's a need to include charities, NGOs, who work at a grassroots level, who really understand what is needed, because they've spoken about the need for financial support, investment for things to happen. And they've mentioned that based on data from 48 different developing economies, that there's a requirement for $360 billion in order to achieve those goals. And key is, what they have done is they have tied the need for gender equity to the sustainability goals. The fact that it's the easiest, we've got 6 years left in terms of the sustainability goals that have been set. And that key is to achieving those gender equality. And I speak specifically of gender harmony because I believe it's about relationship as well, how we come together. And what I'd like to do is just highlight 2 key examples of things which I believe show the importance of communication, engagement, and grassroots involvement. As Sayeeda said, I believe that there is a need to involve men because we are talking about equity, and that's 2 parties. And so with that, a few years back, I wrote a book which was Male Perspectives on the Value of Women at Work. One of the men that I spoke to is a name named Colin Crooks, a social entrepreneur, and he used to run an organization called Tree Shepherd. Tree Shepherd is a social enterprise which works very much at the grassroots level in the UK, and it's really working with disadvantaged communities, helping to reduce inequality and tapping into the talents and passions of people. And that's really enabling them to set up businesses to do what they want to do. And that involves a lot of grassroots companies. Talking to him, a few things that came to the fore is the fact that a lot of you have at the starting stage of the program, because it's a 7-step program. So at the starting stage where it's how to set things up and how to get grant funding, you have both men and women, probably a few more women, but a high number of men as well. And the men engage in that, the women engage in that. And then the men typically go off to do things by themselves independently, while the women continue to engage, and they engage for the knowledge, they engage for the community. They get things set up and they start running things smoothly. And a lot of them might have what you could call cottage industries. So industries which are possibly about food or a craft or a skill, which are essential. We don't talk about these things as much as we used to, but these are some of the things that the women do, not exclusively, because those aren't the only things that women can do. Women can do virtually everything business-wise that men do. But what he noticed is they would set up their businesses, they would start running their businesses often from home, but they would reach a stage whereby most people would talk about scaling their businesses, but they wouldn't do that. And the key reasons why, from talking to them, that he found is that they thought, if we build our business further, it takes away the flexibility that we have. The flexibility to be able to get our children to school and to be home when they come home so that we can look after them and support them. But so that was key for them not wanting to scale their businesses further, because they wanted that, you could call it a lifestyle or more communal type of business. But the other thing that really stood out for me was when he mentioned the fact that there was also the issue of benefits. Now, these businesses aren't businesses that bring in a very high income. They bring in something that you can live comfortably, that gives you a sense of purpose, which is crucial as well when we talk about poverty, because it's poverty of mind and poverty of purpose and how you value yourself. It's not just financial. So, but they would stop at that stage because some of them had their finances were substituted or subsidized by government. And if their income rose above a certain level, that support would be withdrawn. And yes, there's the argument that eventually they could build their businesses to a stage whereby actually they don't need that support. There's a gap in between, and it's a wide gap, which they couldn't readily bridge. I mean, how do you bridge that? Because what you're doing as it stands, it covers your cost, but it doesn't give you income to save. So while you're trying to scale up, how do you deal with that? And in an interim, before you start earning a large amount, recognizing that you still want to be in a position to be able to support and care for your children. So for me, that highlights micro businesses can creates a micro power for women, but it's also the need to understand the barriers, because as he said, we have a wicked benefit system, and I think that can apply to a number of different places. And it re-emphasizes the importance of organizations such as WLOTUS that understand these things, the way people set in policy don't, and the way people at the top within the UN don't, so that they can influence policy. Because it's great for us to have the declarations of what we want to do, but what's going on at a practical level and what are the barriers that stand in the way? That's where we come to the fore, and our voices are important. The second story that I'd like to highlight is, it's interesting for me that since I wrote the book, Male Perspectives, I found that men like to talk to me, because most men don't feel that they're involved in the conversation. It's often that we're saying to them, this is what you need to do. This is how I'm disadvantaged. These are the problems I'm faced. You have a privilege, and therefore you need to make room and space for me. But finding that I've had this dialogue, men decide they open up to me. And a few months back, I was having a conversation with a youngish man from Egypt in his 30s. That shows you how old I am, despite the way I look. And he was asking me questions. Now, he's a Muslim, and he was asking me questions. Did I interview anyone who was Muslim? What were their opinions? What did they think? And he asked me all these questions, and I answered. And so then I said, what do you think? And he said, I'm very open to women working. I don't have a problem with the idea. However, and he's single. He highlighted the fact that he has a brother, and his brother works, and his brother's wife works. So he's totally open to the idea. He, however, highlighted what he saw as two challenges. And key is we have different perspectives. And his was that while he believes it's good for women to work if they want to, men have the responsibility of looking after women. This is his cultural religious belief. Men have that responsibility of looking after women, not just their wives or children, but all the women in their households. And so that men do have a greater need for an income than women. And aligned to that, or separate from that, he also has the belief that if you have children, it's important for a parent to be available to look after them, be at home to look after them and support them. His belief is that women are better at that than men. And he doesn't believe it should be done by someone outside of the family. because he doesn't believe that works effectively. And he looked and he said he's looked at Western societies, and from his observations, he sees the disintegration of family, and he believes that's a challenge. You could challenge what he says, but that's his understanding. And I think if you speak to people across the world, different parts of the world, inclusive of the Western world, they might not use the same language, but they have similar beliefs. And even us as women, sometimes we still have that expectation of men that they're the ones to provide for us. And so they feel that pressure. And these are generalizations, as it's not everyone. But I mentioned this because the man that I spoke to from Egypt, he's not anti-feminist. I mean, he hasn't got anything up against women. He, like many other men, might not understand the challenges that women face, but that's his paradigm, that's his understanding. And it's also, there are women that would agree with him as well. So there's something to be said for us really taking the time to understand the cultures, the traditions, the beliefs, inclusive of religious beliefs, that influence the way we interact, that influence our women's progression. And with that, I believe in conversation, but I also believe that's why I believe there's a crucial need to involve men in some conversations. There's something about having exclusive spaces for women, but there's also something about having men involved at times so that they can first and foremost listen and understand what they don't readily understand, because men often say women are complex. You can disagree, but they say they're simple to understand, women are complex. So they need to be able to be involved in the conversation so that they can have a better understanding. In certain spaces, to express their views, their opinions, and what they're going through, because men have their own challenges with the expectations that we have on them, and what's the new role for men. So that dialogue and that approach of that more interactive approach, which is based on relationship, is an understanding, is why I talk about creating harmony. Because if we don't take such approach, which goes towards creating harmony, better engagement, that's when I believe we reach the place whereby we have that poverty, as I said, the financial poverty, but also the emotional poverty, the poverty of awareness, the poverty of knowledge. And all of those things combine to also lead on to violence, and of its own right. And so I guess my call for everyone is, as I said, I'm more than happy to share my my thinking, my findings from the 2 weeks. As I said, 2 weeks, which are still ongoing because I've got another event today, and next week or thereafter, I plan to do a write-up, which I'll happily share. But outside of that, and outside of the course, contact me at any point in time, it's let's start having greater conversations with each other, greater engagement, so that we can understand and create an equity through that engagement, which also, it's not just equity, it's relational, and it creates the harmony, which I believe we so desperately need in the world that we're living in today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan, and for your wisdom, and again, so much wisdom in today's session, and your thoughts, and I completely agree. And this is one of the reasons why we've often spoken about, I've read your book, Women at Work, and how men, perceive them. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in the book. So, please share the link and where we can pick them up. But I think there's also in terms of looking at women in a more holistic way. I think one of the problems we have that governments don't actually look at women holistically. There is, we can't ignore the fact that women also have a different biological structure to men. And you know, the fact that most men feel because we give birth to children that we are the natural nurturers, and that's nature, you know, you can't go against that. But the problem is that nobody's challenging that or wants to go against that. And in the early part, when a mother gives birth to a child, the child is probably, most of us would probably agree, is probably the most safest and the most, you know, safest way to raise a child is with the mother and child. So there's no arguments. I don't think very few people will dispute that. But what I think governments are lacking is that support that women need in order to become financially, first have a better understanding of women's needs and what their life cycles are like, and not rather than sort of treat women from one perspective, but actually break down women's life cycles where the help is needed in different interims of their lives. You know, as a young girl, there are different ways of inspiring women and educating women and you know, facilitating them. And then you have the early 20s where it's a very different, you know, it's a very different ballgame. But once they've become mothers, the whole landscape for women changes. And it's really about facilitating and providing support for women in that crucial period of their lives where they're most vulnerable. And I think that's the bit most governments don't grasp, and still leave it very much onto the women and the families themselves to sort out and work out, which is where we're sort of stepping in, and you know, both from the SHEWISE platform and also from the WLOTUS platform, we're trying to echo this, that more supports and more advocacy and policy needs to be done and made around these areas to support women when they're most vulnerable, you know. And again, I completely agree and with you in terms of, I think that one of the biggest challenge that our men of this generation are facing is this emerging empowered woman that they really don't know what to do with. You know, how do you deal with this creature that's never been her strongest and the most ambitious, and us going into the space industry now and you know, breaking all those barriers? I think there's really all this conversations really where men need to come into the equation. It's not an area that we can conquer ourselves. They need to come in, and we need to help them and support them to tackle this emerging, you know, empowered woman who's now never really been seen by the planet Earth, really, you know. So I think there's a lot of conversations to be had around there. And Cheryl, what are your thoughts?
I'm just sitting here, and I tell you, first of all, I have to say thank you, Susan. And I'm so appreciative that you're going to join our journey and be on our team. Secondly, that I want to put, if you will allow me, your logo on our website, the Mosaic, because I found that to be exactly what you said, where everyone is valued. I think a lot of that is missing. I know it is. It's missing today, who's valued. That was the second thing. The other thing that you said when you touched on, and it took me back to my earlier days, I should say younger days. Once again, my grandparents and where I grew came into play. In our household, and this is where I say culture is involved, depending on where it is that your roots are from and how things, you know, how things got you to where you are. In our household and our culture, and coming up under the grandparents who came up under slavery, okay, and came up to the North, they came up with the mindset, and this is how it was for me and my three brothers. Whatever I did, they had to do. Ironing, washing, cooking. And I can tell you right now, two of my brothers probably cook better than I do. But it was not that that's just your thing that you, or his thing that he has to do. Everybody has to learn to do. And one of the things that they said to my brothers was, you're not guaranteed you're going to have a wife. So you need to know how to do these things. So it has a lot to do with culture. It has a lot to do with mindset. And where we are, one of the things that you touched on that I say constantly, and I've had these conversations, though I'm not going to bring up, who it was with. But two of my best conversations that lasted for about 3 years was with a couple of gentlemen from Afghanistan and from Iraq. And I learned so very much from them. The exchange of information, what I felt, what I thought, what they thought, how they got to this point, how we, things arrived. And I learned so much of them. So what I'm saying is that we do need this dialogue. I don't know how, between races and groups and so forth, how we can better engage people to do that. I know in Women Entrepreneurs and WLOTUS, we try to do that. The diversity is present, and in SHEWISE. So this is something that we focus on. And the only way that you're going to get that is to have that dialogue. It's not really putting one against the other. It's the dialogue that we need for them to have, and we're not trying to beat an understanding into anyone. We're just trying to come to a ground that everyone can understand. And that's your view, that's my view, and we leave it and we go on and we make something happen. So I appreciate you being on here today. I didn't get your book, but I am going to get your book. I'm going, if you let me, I do want your logo on the website because the mosaic rings bells. It really does. And I hope that we can, as a group, the team, we can continue to move in the directions of the things that have been expressed here today. And I'm really looking forward to it. From each one, something has been learned, and it has been so inspiring to have individuals on here today. And I'm sure that when this video goes out, that we will get a lot of feedback from them. So once again, thank you
I'm
very
just
much,
curious,
Susan. I appreciate
sorry, thank you both very much for the feedback. I really appreciate it. And as you say, it is the conversation, the dialogue. And when I speak to leaders and other people, and what I would recommend to anyone listening is find someone, a man or woman, have a conversation with them, meet them 3 times and have a conversation. Not a false conversation, but just where you're curious about each other to learn
Right.
more about the other person and their experience. Do that. And if you enjoy it and you find value and you gain from it, then go on and do it with someone else. Because that's just a simple way of an individual developing things. But dare I ask, without putting you on the spot, Christy, you might not, but if you have any comments or thoughts or feedbacks, I'd appreciate that if you don't mind. No pressure to do so, though.
No, absolutely. It was very engrossing the way you were, sharing your thoughts and your journey and your conversations. And I think one simple thing that I take away is all about harmony, 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 right? And I think you've kind of stressed upon that every aspect of it, and I'm also looking forward to looking at reading the book, right? And it was, you've kind of made me think, right? It's amazing to get a different perspective of how things are, and this was a new direction of how you're looking at it, right? So it was very interesting, and thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you
It
very much.
means a
I
lot. Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience? Anybody wants to say something or make a comment? I think we've already gone over. We've got I'm gonna
Yeah.
have, we were gonna under, but we've already gone over. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Thank you so much for those who came in today. And I think this is going to be a great recording. And I know we've had hiccups with Zoom today and Eventbrite, and we'll have to go back and investigate what happened there. But you know, it was such a rich conversations and so much information. I just want to say, you know, really appreciate everybody's participation and thank you so much. And hopefully we're just going to get bigger and better and have more events and have more participation. And I think we're on a journey of creating a movement, a global movement here. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Cheryl, last words from you.
My last words are thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Christy, thank you, Susan, thank you. You know, I'm just going around here individually. Thank you for the ones who couldn't show up at this particular time. Thank you, Sayeeda, for always being there and you know, working through this with me and for all that, you know, we've been putting through. And I think we've made a lot of progress since, you know, since the last time. So even though we had, like you said, we had some hiccups today, we learned from those hiccups. You know, we learned what we will do and what we want to do the next time. We had even a hiccup yesterday that we learned from. But
Absolutely.
you know, we have we persevere and we have definitely moved on. And I think this was a great session. It really was. I mean, there are not many times when I just sit and I'm so attentive to what everybody is saying. But I tell you, today was one of those days. I mean, it just went one after the other. And I don't know if anybody noticed, I'm sitting up in my seat, you know, and I'm like, wait a minute, did I, what did she, and I'm taking notes, you know, even though we have a note taker, but I'm taking notes because I want to ask that question. You know, I want to talk about that. Even when we had, you know, the part about the space industry, and both speakers were so valuable.
Amazing.
And the sense information that I tell you, we probably would have never gotten, you know.
Yeah.
And so I am just appreciative for everybody who's participated here today. And definitely we will let you know we're not going to have a lag. You know, we're going to have another time when we'll bring and do another program. But once again, thanks to everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you once
Bye-bye.
again. Yeah, see you.
Bye-bye. Bye.